Hi, this is Jenny from fluffmonger.com, and in this video tutorial I'll be showing how to make a variety of easy to sew face masks, including a plain front and a variety of different animals. These face masks have a curve at the top, a removable nose wire, and a filter pocket. The pattern was inspired by Homemade on Our Homestead's easy to sew pattern with no pleats. I tried a number of different face mask patterns and this one fit my face the best. It gave me a good seal on the sides and the bottom. However, I added a curved top to give a better seal at the top, and I also added a pocket for a removable wire. And then I've also made a number of different patterns for making different animal faces. To put on the mask, put the loop behind your neck at the base of your head, then pull the strings taut until the sides are cinched to the sides of your face. Tie the string on the back of your head and then adjust the nose wire. To make the mask, you'll need to print the pattern. All of the patterns with the different animals and the plain mask are available at my website, fluffmonger.com. You'll also need scissors, pins or clips, a marking tool, floral wire for the nose. If you don't have floral wire, you can also use twist ties or like a 20 gauge wire. You will also need 100% cotton fabric. Cotton fabric is breathable. For the liner pieces, you're going to definitely want to use woven fabric. And for the outside, you can either use woven fabric or a jersey fabric, which is knit fabric like t-shirts. And you will also need some sort of t-shirt yarn or clothesline or shoelaces to help tie the mask around the head. If you've never seen t-shirt yarn, it's really easy to make. I will link a tutorial in the description. You basically just find a t-shirt that doesn't have a seam on the side and you cut a strip off the bottom. These are 1-inch strips, and then when you stretch the fabric it just turns into yarn, and it's really easy. For the fabric, if you plan to sell or donate your masks, I recommend washing it in a fragrance-free detergent, not using any fabric softener or dryer sheets, and not using any spray starch. And the reason I say that is because a lot of detergents and fabric softeners have fragrance in them, and that can be a skin and respiratory irritant for some people. So if you don't know who's going to be receiving your masks, it's a good idea to just wash them in either fragrance-free detergent, vinegar, or you can even make washing soda from baking soda in the oven. I will also link a tutorial for that because it's really easy to make. And then you may also want some sort of turning tool. I'm using hemostat clamps, but you can also use the chopstick, and you may need a seam ripper. For sewing the shark, the dinosaur, or the dragon, you're going to cut 2 liner pocket pieces using the liner pattern piece. You're going to cut 2 of the front pieces, so I'm going to have, this will be the top of the head and the bottom of the head, and then you'll also cut out, you'll also trace the teeth pattern piece on just a folded piece of white fabric. If you want to make a mask with a curved nose strip for the floral wire, you're going to want to cut some bias strips. And the way you find the bias is the fabric has a selvage edge, which usually has some print on it. And this is the finished edge that won't unravel. And you can cut your pattern pieces either this way or this way. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. And the bias strip will be cut at a 45-degree angle. So you can either cut it this way or this way. So for sewing the nose strip, we've folded our edges in, and then pressed, then folded over, pressed again, and now we're going to stitch up the edges. And if you have issues with your sewing machine eating your fabric, especially with little small pieces like this, I take a little piece of paper and put it underneath. And then I just stitch over the paper. So you want to forward and back stitch at the beginning and end. And then when you pull it off, you can just cut your threads. And then you kind of have a little perforation and you can just fold your paper back. And then you can just tear it away. Like that. And I'm going to do the other side. And there's your nose strap. To sew the liner pocket, I'm going to take my 2 liner pieces and trace down the middle 3 inches on both sides. And then I'll take that over to the sewing machine and stitch over these 2 places. You want to make sure that you forward and back stitch at the beginning and end, especially a few times towards the center, because if you're opening that pocket a number of times, you want to make sure it's secure. And now I'm going to press it open. If you'd like for your pockets to have top stitching, you can go ahead and do that now. So now I'm getting ready to sew the teeth, and the key to making the little points for the teeth is to use a short stitch length. That way you can get all the details. And when you go down to the bottom of the tooth, you want to make sure that you pivot at the point and then come back up. You don't want to come down, stitch, 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 and then stitch across and then up, because then you'll have like a blunt end. And then when you get up here at the top, you want to kind of make more of like a curve. So there might be like 3 stitches right here. So I might stitch here, here, here. I guess that's 4 stitches. Oh, that's 3 stitches. So you might stitch just kind of like in a curved shape. And that helps the teeth kind of separate from each other when you're flipping it right side out. And so I will kind of show you what I mean as I go along. So now I'm at the end. I'm going to pivot to come back up to the top. Now that I'm up here, I'm going to kind of do more of like a U shape. And now I'm going to come back down. So now that I've stitched my shark teeth, I'm going to go ahead and cut them out. I'm using woven fabric for this one, so I'm going to stay about 3/16 of an inch away from the stitch line. And I'm going to clip the corners, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut straight across. And I'm actually going to wait until I flip this right side out to trim it down so that it has a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's just a little bit easier to flip that way. If you didn't leave that little extra edge, it's fine. And I'm going to clip into that curve. I'm just going to trim these little tips down just a little bit more. And then I'm going to take my hemostat clamps, or you can use your chopstick, and flip it right side out. Make sure you push those little tips out. And I like to use my iron and press it and hit it with a steamer, and then just kind of go into the corners more to make sure that they're stretched out to the shape that I want them to be. Then I'm going to press it, and it'll be ready to put into the shark, dinosaur, or dragon face. So now that I've flipped my teeth and pressed them, I'm ready to put them into the pieces for the face. So I've cut one gray piece, or if you're making this is for a shark, if you're making a dinosaur or a dragon, you can use green or purple or pink or whatever color you like. And then I've also cut another piece for the bottom, so I'm using white for the bottom of my shark. And I'm going to line up the teeth along the edge here, and then I'm going to sandwich it between this other piece, and then I'm going to pin this in place or clip it. And then you'll want to base stitch. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch across the top, but you'll want to base stitch to make sure that the teeth are in straight. They might be kind of crooked. One tooth might be hanging out longer than the other, so just base stitch first. And then you can check to make sure your teeth are all straight. And if they look good, you can go ahead and do your final stitch, and if not, then you can take the basting out and try again. So now I'm about ready to stitch the front of this face mask to the liner pocket. So I'm going to trace the curve of the nose. I'm going to line up these 2 pieces of fabric, or these 3 pieces of fabric, I guess. I'm going to take the curved tracing template and line it up. Right near the top there. And then I'm going to trace the seam allowance. And I'm going to trace the stitch line. And now I can cut all 3 pieces of fabric so that they match up perfectly. Now I'm going to pin this to the top. So now that the nose piece is pinned in place, I'm going to go ahead and baste it. So now I'm going to top stitch this side down. You want to go back and forth a few times at the edges just in case people are slipping their nose wire in and out a lot. You don't want this pocket to come loose. So now that I have my nose piece top stitched to my liner pocket, I'm going to take right sides together and lay them on top. If your edges are a little uneven along the sides or the bottom, you can trim them so that they match. But I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch along the top, down the side, across the bottom, and up this side again. And then when I'm ready to flip it right side out, I can just use this pocket hole for flipping. So now I'm ready to stitch these together. I can stitch right along this line that I've traced earlier, and then I can just go 1/4 inch from the straight edges. So now I'm going to clip these corners and flip this right side out. I want to use my hemostat clamps, or you can use your chopstick or whatever to get the points to come out. And then you want to use your fingers to kind of go along the seam allowance in here and just kind of open up that curved edge. And also just kind of go along the sides as well. And now I'm going to press this. So I've pressed this and I've gone ahead and folded in the sides 3/4 of an inch like they show on the pattern. And now we are ready to put our cord in the side and then top stitch it down. So you want the bottom of the loop to be at the bottom of the mask, so the curved nose piece is up here. I'm just going to tuck this cord into the side. Make sure it's deep into that groove where you folded the fabric. You don't want to accidentally stitch over it. And now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch from the edge down here, and on this side make sure that you forward and back stitch well at both ends, because if you're pulling on this cord you want to make sure that that's secure. So now I'm going to stitch the cord in place. I forgot that this had 2 different colors on it. I want to have just white at the bottom and gray at the top. So on this side I'm just going to stitch up to the white end, and then I will switch my thread over to gray. To make the nose wire that will go inside the nose pocket, you're going to take some floral wire and cut a piece about 6 inches long. Make sure you're wearing some safety protection for your eyes. And then you'll take a pair of pliers and bend in the end. You can bend it in either once or twice, and then you'll just kind of pinch it down until it goes in, until it doesn't have any places to snag, and it can go in and out smoothly for washing. To wash your face mask, you'll want to tie your string into a knot so that it doesn't come through the loop. You want to take out your nose wire and then either wash it in a laundry bag, or if you don't have a delicates bag, if you don't have one of these, you can just stuff it down into the bottom of a pillowcase and tie off the top. If you're looking for places to donate masks, consider your local refugee resettlement agencies. I'll be donating all of these to Every Campus of Refuge, which is a local agency here in Greensboro, North Carolina. You can find the pattern and tutorial for this mask on my website. I've included a link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the thumbs up button and the subscribe button for my YouTube channel. You can find me and my fluffy friends at fluffmonger.com and on social media.